Hey, welcome to the podcast, Mrs. Grabe. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Go ahead and call me Nancy.
It's kind of odd for me kind of growing up in the South, growing up in North Georgia, moving to Atlanta, meeting you and Justin. It's like I'm so used to the last name Graby because there's so many Justins on our Frisbee team, and it's just like Graby, Graby, Graby. And when I meet you guys, it's just like, oh, it's the Grabies. But welcome to the podcast, Nancy.
Thank you.
Very welcome. A question I love to ask every guest is, who do you say you are?
Wow. Who do I say I am? That seems feels so loaded these days, right? um, in the world we're living in, I always tease that I identify as a 23-year-old, 120-pound girl, but that's not truly who I am. I, you know, I'm so many things and so many people. And I'm not that I'm a different person in every situation, but I'm a different person to everyone, right? Because of the relationship that we have. Because I'm a mom and I'm a wife and I'm a friend and I'm a counselor and a coach. But who I am, I believe, is a encourager, a teacher, a trainer, and an encourager. And I am that in every one of those relationships.
I like that. It is a tough question, but I guess I like to ask it. And even how I came to it was just kind of meditating on the word and just being like, oh, that'd be something nifty. Like you're doing this podcasting thing, getting to know people, and it's like really getting to know myself. And I was like, well, I wonder how you get different answers from different people. And like you say, sometimes it's the roles you play or like the person you're trying to become or like the title you might hold or something like that, but everyone's a little different.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because to me, my why is so important. And in the Bible, Jesus goes to take care of Peter's mother in law because she's sick, right? And he heals her, and everybody shows up at the front door to be healed. But Jesus uses that moment to tell them the good news and to heal them. Everybody goes home to go to bed. He sleeps. In the morning, he gets up before anybody shows up and he goes off to be with God, which makes sense to me because as a counselor and a healer, it's exhausting. And the people start lining up again. And Peter's like going, where's Jesus? And he starts looking for him. And when he finds him, he says, Jesus, and I'm totally paraphrasing, right? Let's go back and heal all these people. That was awesome stuff we did yesterday. And Jesus is like, yeah, that's not why I came. And it hit me that Jesus Christ in the Bible says that is not why I came. And I thought about Simon Sinek and his circles, the golden circles, and that why was so important. It's what inspires us and gets us to do things. And so I thought, well, what is my why? And I noticed that Jesus took the disciples to the next town. And in the next town, what does he do? He starts spreading the good news, the gospel, and he's healing people. So it's not that healing people wasn't good or wasn't something he could do, but it wasn't the why. And I thought, I know we're all supposed to share our faith, but we have a specific why that God put you, Asher, on this earth, why he put Nancy on this earth, and why he put everybody else here. And what is that? What is it that we're supposed to do? So I made circles and I looked for that Venn diagram and I wrote, what are the things that I believe I'm good at? Right? Like I'm a good cook and, I'm a good listener and I'm, those kinds of things. And what do people want from me? What do they like to get from me? And then what are the things that I feel like the world needs? And where did those three things overlap? And I came up with probably a dozen words, and that felt overwhelming. Like that's too big a why. So I sat down with friends and my husband, and we narrowed it down. And the three words that came up was a teacher, a trainer, and an encourager. And when I say that to people who know me, they go, yes, that is who you are.
Yeah.
That felt really good. But then I use it as a litmus test for everything that I do. Right. So if somebody invites me to do something, sometimes things are just no brainers, right? If that'd be fun, I'll go do it. But if it's something that's going to be long term or work or, does that meet my why? And if it does, then I do it. And if it doesn't, then I don't, because I won't be happy if I'm working outside of my why. And I realized that I was stealing other people's blessings because I was doing their why. And then I was exhausted and tired and unhappy because I was doing too many things that weren't my why, weren't good for me. And I was stealing other people's. And so I've started, like, when I say no to someone, I don't just say no. I say, you know what? I don't think that's the best thing for me. I wonder if you've thought about this person, this person, and this person, because I'm starting to learn the whys of the people around me, because I think that's really important to help them utilize who they are in the best possible way. Listen to me losing my voice.
Oh,
That was a long answer.
no, you're good. I like that answer because we kind of talked about it briefly when we met yesterday, but I think when you explain it in that way, that's why I like the long answers, because when you explain the why, it's like understanding why you're doing something and having that be like a sole focus to say this is the reason why I'm going after this thing. Like
Mhm.
I was telling you earlier about this whiteboard in the back. It's like this is where I started the podcast, and I was trying to use a whiteboard before to reflect light, but I found out very quickly that wasn't working, and the way I was hanging up the whiteboard wasn't working. But the person that was here before me hung this up, and everything back here is in Spanish. But it's like that's not my focus. My focus is in talking with you. So in doing this like 160 or 70 episodes into it 3 years later now, it's like, oh, my why is communication. And right
Mhm.
now it's like communicating with someone from my past and making that clear to be like, okay, like make sure you've got your microphone. You can still record from your phone. You've got the time scheduled. You got it saved through the application where I have enough time to where it's not going to be interrupted. Like being at my parents', it's like, okay, I know on Saturday mornings we usually do Saturday prayer. So instead of trying to be rebellious or like, I'm going to go to the library, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do, it's like, no, like I already worked all week, and like just clearing the hurdle of like having a conversation on a Saturday morning was just, I'm home, I'm back in the room where I was last year, but I'm not here to stay. I'm here to do one thing. Like I have one why. And just the
Mhm.
way in which you explained it, it's like you're not stealing other people's whys and understanding other people's whys. Like now you're able to add to them, and you're not overwhelming yourself by giving yourself so many things to do that you're trying to save the world, so to speak. Is like, I'm gonna go help everybody. It's like you can't help everybody. And even in doing the podcast, what I'm finding is that like it's great to one meet new people, but it's also great to um reconnect with people from my past, and meeting you through Justin, who is a teammate of mine. He did mechanical engineering. I did civil engineering. We went to Southern Polytech, which is now Kennesaw Marietta campus. But like in meeting him, it's funny how he pushed me so hard to like, he really wanted me to play frisbee. And I was like, I don't want to do it. Like having played sports for 3 years, like I knew I wanted to do something, but I was so focused on like, oh, this is just going to be a distraction to take away from schooling. But it's like, I was kind of wrong in that regard, and I'm glad that he kept pushing me to, because then he introduced me to his family, introduced me to you, and ultimately you introduced me to Mr. Greg Dillon, who
Mhm.
kind of gave me, he didn't give me a breakdown of disc, but I think he's the first person that I saw apply it in the way that he taught me to job search and understand that like where you're looking for jobs, they might not be there. And even how you um, go about interviewing,
Right.
you might need to interview the interviewer. And it's like just meeting different people like that and understanding that like you clearly understand your why, he clearly understands his why, Justin clearly understood his why, and just like bringing those people into my life. And how you said it now, that kinda clarified it for me to where I was like, "Oh, okay, like, I'm communicating, and I'm getting better at it through practice like this, but also as I'm communicating with different people, I'm understanding, okay, this is their why and this is what they value." So now it's like I get that little inkling to say, "Oh, okay, I can connect you with Nancy because she's a teacher. She's teaches parents, she's a counselor. She can help you in this regard." And also kind of going back to what we talked about before, it's like having those circles and being able to draw that Venn diagram where you make a target with a
Mhm.
bullseye. I think maybe my illustration isn't the best right now, but if you draw a circle, you've got a big circle maybe of what you want to do. You draw an inner circle of it of how you want to do that, and then you draw a circle inside of it of why you want to do that. I think that kind of, if you work from the inside out, it's a little bit easier, and then you can always, like, modify what it is that you're going after.
I think that what I we forget, right? We always want to say, and especially you guys that are engineers. I'm married to an engineer. I raised an engineer. I get it. Is that it's like I'm logical. This makes sense. These are the reasons that I do these things. But human beings are not logical. We are very emotional, and every decision we make is an emotional decision. And then we place logic on it to prove what we emotionally believed and felt. And those of us who feel like we're very logical, and I do think I'm
Mhm.
pretty logical, it's just that we're quicker to bring the logic to it than the other people are. And we're bright enough and quick enough to say what is the logic that supports my emotional decision.
Mm,
It is all emotional. So that's why, that's going to sound ridiculous now. That's why the why is so important. And like we spoke yesterday, there were so many powerful men speaking about civil rights. And the one we all remember is JFK, right? He's not JFK, is Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King had a dream. And we can get behind a dream. That why drives us as human beings. And I think that a lot of humans, as a counselor, I see that they're like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I feel lost. And when we find our why, it's like catching the wind in the sail of your sailboat, and your life takes off, and you feel good, and you feel powerful, you feel useful, and it's a better ride than
mhm.
when we're trying to do it from I should and I need to.
Yeah, yeah.
I tell people all the time, don't should on me.
That's hilarious. It's funny, I was thinking that this morning kind of in relation to interacting with my parents, but, in the same breath, I kind of caught myself into thinking it's like, well, I don't really need to respond in any kind of way right now. I just need to listen and let what's being said just be heard and know that it doesn't need my attention to be like dealt with and addressed or be combated with, to be like, okay, well, you said this, now I'm going to say this, because now it's like you can kind of get caught up in the wrong spiral, so to speak, and then detract from the thing where it's like, okay, I know I have to be, I would like to be here at this time, but it's like if I get caught up in trying to defend a position that I don't really need to take, then it's like I'm taking away from my why. It's like that's not the concern right now.
I think too that when we are ever we're in a conversation with somebody that's contentious, or we're on different sides, or we have different thoughts about it, we always have to choose, what do we want? Do I want to be right, or do I want relationship? I always want relationship. Always choose relationship, because from relationship we can figure out what we want to do. Sometimes it is a compromise. Sometimes, if I listen to you and I have a good relationship, I'll let you convince me, and we'll go, wow, you know what, Asher, now that I've thought about it, your idea is much better, let's do it. Or I may, from a relationship, actually get you to change your mind. And what's really even more fun is when the two of us have a conversation, and I keep choosing relationship, and all of a sudden the two of us go, well, you know what? Neither one of us is right. Let's do this third thing that we've created, discovered together,
Yeah.
because that creates this stronger bond.
Mm.
And I'm so very tired in this world that we're living in now, because everybody wants to be right. They want to be heard. And if you aren't listening to me and you don't agree with me, you are bad. That's not fair. Because then that means if you're not listening to me or you don't agree with me, then you're bad. And that means nobody's good. And it's like my side's right and your side's wrong. No, you know what? We are all human beings. We're all flawed. We all see it from different perspectives. And it matters what perspective you're looking at it from, what you see. And I can't see what you're seeing. I have never been a young Black man. And you've never been an old white woman, right? So it's like, and it's not that one's better than the other, but
Yeah.
just very different. I love there's a Jewish story there where they say, that one man's looking in the building from the right, the west window, and the other one's
Mhm.
looking from the east window. Do they both see reality? And the answer is yes, right? That's
Mm.
real, what they see.
Yeah.
But do they see the same thing?
Mm.
And the answer is no, they
Right.
don't see the same
Right.
thing, right? Because if I'm looking in this window and you're looking in this window, I can see the things on the floor under your window and
Yeah.
you can't. And
Right.
you can see the things under the window. And so, yes, what you see is different, but it
Mhm.
doesn't make it less true. And
Yeah.
what I see is different and it isn't less true. And I think the moment we see that and we value that piece of it,
Mhm.
how wonderful that is.
Yeah.
And how much better we are as humans when
Yeah.
we can value that.
I agree. It the funny thing about the analogy that you said, it's like you've never been a young Black man. I've never been an older white woman. The thing is, it's even like in being like the thing that I've noticed from the time that I left North Georgia to go to Atlanta, go to the Midwest, back to Georgia, back to like out to Puerto Rico, just visiting different places and things like that, is that even where I see people that look like me, there's constant reminders that just because someone looks a certain way, they're not. And even though there's like similarities that we all kind of
Mhm.
tied to, like sometimes I think it kind of does a disservice when people group themselves together because like unless I tell someone that I'm from West Central Africa, Cameroon, but I grew up in the States for the most part, it's like I don't really know Cameroon. I don't know the culture of it. But at the same time, I don't really know American culture. I don't know like a lot of that. So it's like it's been a big learning experience for me from an outsider. And it's like even one of my friends from college when I moved to tech and we got together in a group, the thing that was interesting was that like we were at the same we were taking the same exact classes. Like we got into this mentorship program where I was supposed to be mentoring him and another young lady that was maybe a year younger than us. But usually a mentor is like got a step or two ahead. But to your point, like we were saying yesterday, it's like when you're in a mentorship or like a coaching role, it's not about a stature thing, so to speak. Like it helps if you know just a little bit more, even if it's like if you're reading a book, if you're a page ahead, you can kind of lead someone to that next page. But like just having the thought of like, okay, I've got to know this all. It's like right off the bat, I was just like, hey guys, like I know this is our very first time doing this. They just had this program here. I'm familiar with it because I went to this other school and I transferred in. But now that we're here, here's what I know. Here are the resources I have. I know that you know as much as I know. So if you need anything beyond these resources, like let's talk through it in dialogue because I don't want to pretend to mislead you into thinking that I know more than I actually know. Because then it's like if I don't tell you that off the bat, we can quickly form this misconception to be like, "Oh, okay, Asher's this." And sometimes it's like when someone does that and I'm like, no, no, that's not me. I don't know what you're talking about." But it's funny in that way.
I think, I have some severe learning disabilities. And I tell this story to you because I think that it's that whole, mentoring and helping thing. And when you have disabilities, you feel so different than the rest of the world. And small children, and this is like my passion, so bear with me, that we don't have enough information as a small child to decide what things really mean. And so if we don't have people speaking into our lives and helping us, then we will perceive it looking in our window, my east window versus my parents' west window, what's going on. So I have no phonological skills. I'm dyslexic. And so I moved from, my parents are Canadian. We moved to the United States. I was born in the United States, but with Canadian parents. So it skewed the way I looked at the world. We moved from Illinois to New Jersey. So I had some funny accents. Moved back from New Jersey to Illinois. And in New Jersey, we were sight reading. In Illinois, we're doing phonics. I have no phonics skills. I have no phonics background. I was so lost. And I believed that I was stupid. Not that I had a disability, not that I needed extra help, but that
Mhm.
I was stupid and how that would disappoint my parents. And so I didn't say anything to them. And then I had a teacher who was mentally ill who said, Nancy is mentally retarded and cannot learn anymore. And by the way, children, it might be contagious. So the kids would run around with their fingers crossed, pinching me and giving me cootie shots so I wouldn't give them my retardation. And, and I tell that story because that followed me and has affected every thought, every interaction, every decision I have made throughout my life. And I've needed people to speak into it to help me. And so the analogy now that I use with kids and with parents and around this mentoring idea is that I love superheroes and I like them to be like Boy Scouts. So
Yeah.
Superman, Captain America, like I like those guys. I love Iron Man, don't get me wrong, but he's not my favorite because he's so arrogant, so full of himself. So there was a TV show called Smallville, and it's a story of Superman growing up. And in the story, Superman is strong and he's fast when he comes to the world. He's a toddler. He grows up, he's in high school, and he's still fast and strong. And like most humans, in high school, he starts to get his real skills. And he's sitting in as I recall, it's a science class of some sort, and the air conditioning's gone out. He's got a substitute teacher. It's a really young, very pretty young woman. And she's in the corner, leaning against the window, fanning herself while the kids are watching a movie. So the lights are low, and, it's a very provocative moment. And Superman, as a young teen boy, gets excited, and all of a sudden his laser eyes come on, and he burns down the movie screen, and the fire sets the wall on fire behind it. Well, he's scared. Everybody's scared. Everybody leaves the building. The school's on fire. They have to put it out. And he runs home. And he's sitting in his private space that his parents have made him in his barn with his eyes closed. And his parents hear him run in and they come out and they're like, "What's wrong, Clark? What's wrong?" And he's like, I can't. if I open my eyes, I'll kill you. And they're like, "No, no, no, you can look at us." And he's like, "No, I can't." And he believes that they can't help him because they are not like him. They don't have laser eyes. And there's some truth to that. So the question I always ask Asher is, are laser eyes a disability or a superpower?
Mm.
And I would say right now that for Superman, for Clark Kent, the
Mhm.
teenager, it's a disability
Mhm.
because
He
if he
doesn't know
opens
what
his
to
eyes,
do
he's
with
going to
them.
kill people, right? So his parents talk to him and they go, "You're right. We've never had laser eyes. We don't have laser eyes. We don't believe we will ever have laser eyes, but we can help you, right? Because we have had other problems and we have learned how to work through problems. So let us teach you how to work through a problem while you do your problem. I can't do it for you, I may not know every step, but let me give you some help, right? Greg Dillon, he's never ever gone to an interview to become an engineer, but he's done a whole lot of interviews. He's worked with people who do the interviewing, right? So he could teach you those skills. So the parents work with Clark Kent and he learns to finally be able to open his eyes. And now he uses his laser vision to save people, right? He shoots meteors out of the sky for us and he burns holes in buildings to rescue people. And so for me, the point of telling the story here is that mom and dad were mentors. They could coach, they could lead, and they were only this far ahead of him. But this was all he needed, was somebody who knew how to deal with a problem and fix it. And and then, but the bigger part for me as a person with disabilities is that my disability is only a disability as long as it controls me.
Right.
But once I control it, it's my superpower, right? So I read slower, but I really remember what I do because I didn't like to read and I didn't find out that it was dyslexia until I was in college. I learned to listen and remember what I was told. And that's become really helpful when I'm doing therapy or coaching because I hear the nuances. I see the things that aren't said. I hear the words that you're acting and not just the things that you're saying. So it's
Yeah.
become a superpower for me. And I think that we need to, as human beings, stop thinking, I'm bad, I'm weak, I can't.
Right.
I can't is a four-letter word.
Mhm.
Just say, I don't know yet. I can't
Mhm.
wait till I can. These are my strengths. I'm going to build on my strengths and bring my weaknesses along. I'm going to look at this weakness and see who does this well.
Right.
Right? My I was talking to my husband when you first reached out to ask me to be on the podcast, and I said, Richard, I've always liked Asher, but I think it's very funny because Asher is probably one of the quietest people I've ever met in my life, and I can't even imagine him doing a podcast. And you took that quiet, introspective personality of yours, and you have been watching the world, and you're now at being curious about it, and you're creating this thing. It's become a superpower for you. I think that's so cool.
Thank you. Thank you. And what's funny about what you say with um, when people bring up disabilities in a cultural aspect from where I come from is that, and even growing up with it in the household, it's that the things that are negative blended in with Bible culture, so to speak, is almost never talked about because it's always like you don't want to talk about the negatives, but like you can even talk about the positive in a negative way where it's like
Mm,
if you don't address the negative because it's like we don't want to talk bad because it's almost like you're welcoming in spirits and you're welcoming other things like the power of your tongue, so to speak. But it's like
absolutely.
yes, your tongue has a lot of power and it takes you one direction or another. And now people would chastise that teacher that said that to you because it's like you can only imagine like how long it would take you to undo all that damage. But it's like having people to speak to you and even being able to do this in a way where it can be recorded and shared with someone else. It's like now that can help someone that would maybe never otherwise have someone just say, hey kid, you're gonna be all right. It's like don't listen to the person that's going through their own thing, but like, yes, it may be harder for you to learn. And for me, it's like I grew up, I think in a way, learning not to hold on to certain labels because like wearing glasses, for instance, one of the optometrists that is it an optometrist?
I think so. I'm so
What
bad about because there's
right.
the guy who makes the glasses and the guy who does the
Right.
eyes, and
Well, whoever the
one of those
person
guys.
is that checks your eyes, like we had this one at Pearl Vision, and it's nothing against Pearl Vision, but I just remember him for most of my time through high school because I would go with my mom, and he was always just negative. Like, you think all doctors are supposed to be there to help people and, like, help do no harm, but, like, the way in which he spoke was always harmful, and I don't think he's working there now, maybe he's retired or things like that, but he would tell you that, "Okay, I don't have the best eyes," and he would always be so negative to tell you, like, "Okay, here's" in layman's term, he would tell you what would be logical, like, "These are the things that are wrong with your eyes, like, they're gonna go bad at 30, and, like, after this, you're gonna need bifocals and this," and it's like, you're not wrong, but the way in which you're telling me this, it doesn't help me. And
Right,
it's like when and on the opposite end, my mom would tell me, like, read about Moses and, like, how he had the miracle of, like, good health at 100 and this, and it's like I would kinda get lost in between the 2, and I'm doing this to kind of, like, show a gap between
right,
my hands where it's like, on the one hand, you just get super negative or super negative, really low, or on the other end, you get super positive where it's like you ignore the things in the middle where it's like, okay, 2 things can be true at the same time. How you get there or how you get through, like, that coaching, that's what helps that dialogue where it's like you're choosing relationship where it's like, "Okay, I might not agree with what you're saying right now, but I'm willing to give you time and attention to say, 'Okay, I hear you.'" And at least it's like, "Okay, like, I'm gonna keep going and talking to this person because I know when I call them, they pick up. When I ask them to show up, they show up for me. Even if we we're always, like, contentious, it's like something in my heart tells me it's like, "Okay, my parents actually do care about me," because there are people that don't have their parents in their lives. It's like, I didn't grow up with grandparents, like, I've seen maybe pictures of them, but unfortunately, they've all passed. And meeting different people in my life and seeing, like, where maybe a relationship is contentious or, like, it's it's easier to make friends with strangers than it is your own family, but then, like, in making, um, friends with people that are strangers or people that are new to me, it's like, "Oh, okay," like, if I can talk to someone that I've never met before, like, doing something that was hard at first, it's like, maybe I can get better at talking with my parents, or I can get better talking with my siblings, and it's been one of those things, it's like, "Oh, okay, maybe I don't need to actually talk. Maybe I just need to practice listening." And it's like, okay, it's really hard. And then
it
at
is.
times where I'm just like, I wanna go 100 miles in the opposite direction, it's like, maybe I'll shorten down the time. It's like, I'm not gonna stay on the phone for 2 hours. Okay, I can't do 30 minutes. I can't do 10 minutes. Let me just give you, like, 5 to 2 minutes. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna stop you right there because 1, I can't do anything about this. 2, if we're going in a circle, it's like, you're really bringing me down. Like, we gotta do something else, or like, "Okay, I'll call you back. I'll call you back. Like, let me let it breathe for a week," and then if it's just one of those like, "Hey, how are you doing? Good. Okay, the week was good." It's like, it's something. It's not always deep, and I guess you you don't always get everything all at one time, and I'm just coming to realize that, like, that's okay. Like, just be where your feet are, and, like, what is it? Sometimes they say, "Be careful what you pray for because the way in which you get it doesn't always come how you expect." It's like you pray to God saying, like, "Hey, God, I want you to, give me a wife. I want you to, bless me with riches. I want you to just do all these great things." But it's like, "Okay, well, how about instead of giving you a wife, I make you into what a husband is? How about I strip away some of your character flaws and kind of show that to you in the mirror and be like, nobody likes this. So so maybe you should like fix that and get out of like your shyness." Or like, okay, no, it's like if you're going to be shy, like embrace who it is that you are and be better at that instead of just being like, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. It's like, yeah, you're right. Woe is you. It's like you think you suck. Okay, yeah, you suck. And it's like, "But you're not supposed to say that to me." It's like, you saying it to yourself all day long, like, why why should I just show up and just, like, take all your problems away? It's like, what are we
Yeah.
really asking?
I think that there's like a lot in what you just said. And so I'm going to go back right to the beginning, with parents. And I'm a Christian, and that's important to me. And one of the things that hurts me most is to watch myself or other people use the Bible, and I like to use the analogy, beat somebody over the head with it, right? Because how does anybody come to God if he's the person you got beaten up with? It's like he doesn't feel like a loving God that I want to go hang out with. He's someone who beat the crap out of me growing up, right? And we tend to see God like we see our biological living fathers. We see the Holy Spirit the way we see our moms, because moms teach and train and encourage, and that's what the Holy Spirit does. And the way that we see our friends and our siblings affects how we see Jesus. And that's an interesting thing. So you need to heal the relationships with those people and forgive them so that you can be close to God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, because that's important. And to separate who they are. And so one of the things I've really dedicated my life to is teaching people to negotiate with other people. And to do that well is to make the other person feel seen and heard, and to realize what the real issue is, right? So my favorite Jedi mind trick that I teach to people, and I teach it both to teenagers and young adults and to parents, is that when the other person says something that just hurts us deeply and we're like, I don't know what to say to that, right? So I'm going to take one from a parent's perspective, right? A kid looks at them and goes, I hate you. I wish you were dead. Now it doesn't, in your culture, probably you knew better. You would have died if you had said that. And I mean that figuratively, not seriously.
No,
I have
sometimes you
formed.
might actually die.
Exactly, right? But in some of the other cultures in the United States, that happens, and mothers cry and they don't know what to do, and these kids get out of control. And what I teach you to say is the last 2 to 3 words that they said were the most important part of the sentence. But you don't say it with an uptick at the end, because that's a question. You say it flat, like it's a statement. So if I said, you wish I was dead, that's a question. But if I say, you wish I was dead, I've just made a statement. I didn't agree with you. I didn't disagree with you. I just said back what you said. And when we use the same words someone else is saying, they feel that sameness. There's mirror neurons in our head, and we feel like they're like us, and we feel safe with them. And if I can get a parent to say to their kid, you wish I was dead, they go, well, no, I don't wish you were dead. I'm just so frustrated with you. Well, now we have information, right? Your mom or your dad, and I'm just going to guess because I don't know them and I don't know your situation, but they say something to you like, if you had stayed here at home and you were close to God, or if you had used your degree, you would be, right? I've been with enough families. If you had used your degree, and stayed with it, you would already be making blah, blah, blah. And you go, I'd already been making blah, blah, blah. And they go, well, then they feel like they need to give you more information, because the issue usually isn't the first thing they say.
Mhm.
The issue is deeper. The issue is, I'm going to guess, for your mom is something like, I love you so much and I want you to be safe and successful, and I will not always be here for you. And I want to know when I die that you are comfortable and you're cared for.
Mm.
That's a whole different conversation, isn't it?
Right, right.
Now you can comfort your mother's heart.
Yeah.
Mom, I've got this in savings, and these are my plans, and I love what God's doing. He's preparing me, right?
Mm.
He, like he did with Moses. First, he put him in Pharaoh's house to learn and how to be a leader, and then he put him out in the wilderness to learn to be dependent, and then he
Mhm.
gave him sheep and a family, and then he sent him back.
Mm.
You're Moses.
Yeah.
You're going through your learning and your training. That's cool, but you can't answer your mom's question if you don't know what it is.
Mm.
And we get caught up in the tit for tat.
yeah,
Well, if you had done what you did thought you were gonna do in college, and you're like, "Well, mom, it's not really meeting my need. It's, too much work." And she's like, "Oh, you're afraid of work." And all of a sudden you're having a fight that's about nothing anybody was really thinking when the conversation started. And so it's that Jedi mind trick. It's called mirroring. And it's just the last couple of words. And I challenge you and anybody else listening to do it like in the grocery store or with a friend or with a coworker where it's not emotional.
yeah,
Because if we can do it with somebody it's not emotional with, then when it is emotional, when it does matter. Because I know you love your parents, right?
right,
Then you'll be able to do it. But if you don't practice it elsewhere, when
right,
it comes time to do it, the emotions get in the way and you
yeah,
can't do it.
right, right. That's a that's a good tip and tool to have because it's like and to your point also practicing it when the emotions aren't high because that's what kind of gives you that confidence where you can slowly build up the skill to be like because like immediately I went from seeing it as a trick to seeing it as a tool because in my mind and immediately when I hear trick I'm thinking like oh I'm pulling one over on you, I'm fooling you, versus like okay, if I have a tool it could kind of be both things, but like when a magician like
Right.
does a trick or like he does a thing, it's like it's something that he's had. Like it's a trick to me because it's like, oh, you tricked me. I didn't see it coming. I don't know what happened with that, but it's like this thing that he's been able to perfect. And it's like, oh, the magician never reveals his tricks. And it's like there's nothing up my sleeves. There's and it's like I've got your attention over here while I'm doing something over here. And it's like that. So I guess sometimes it's like that, the mistrust factor. And even this morning, I went for a walk and I was listening to this video from our for a Sunday morning group that I'm a part of, and we usually do our mentor will assign a homework, like watch this video, and then we'll discuss it in the morning. And what I've noticed is that like if I watch a video of someone's and I hear like a bad report from them, I maybe stay attached to the negativity rather than hearing what the person has to say. It's like if they say something bad, kind of going back to your point about everybody wanting to be right. It's like once you hear a negative report about someone, you kind of just cut them off and you're like, well, nothing that you say matters anymore. Like there's nothing else that you can teach me. And it's like I'd been watching a series of these videos kind of as you do going down the YouTube rabbit hole. Like you land on somebody's page if they've got a whole bunch of like destroy videos or like they go through and they uncover like conspiracy or people trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. You're like, man, okay, this person's running like a multi-level marketing scheme. And it's like there's a reason like something went wrong with these. But it's like on the other hand, they kind of okay, kind of does make sense that if you find something effective and you tell a friend that tells a friend, and it's like, okay, like how am I supposed to feel about this? And it's weird because it's like they had gotten this gentleman on and I guess he felt like it was kind of a gotcha moment or I don't know. It's hard to tell when people do things on screen and it's like, okay, who's playing who or like who's trying to get out of a situation because like some people will be like I don't know if you call them like investigative journalists, but at the same time, journalists have really lost a lot of respect for people making like clickbait articles in order to get paid because people aren't buying papers anymore. And it's like, um, when there's that, there's kind of like a dishonesty of being like, oh, okay, I thought this was something else. Like you played me. But on the other hand, it's like even in that, like when someone is been duped or caught or when someone's trying to like backpedal, you can kind of see it in real time, even if they're like if they're showing confidence, if they're repeating themselves and telling the same story, it's like I'm thinking in my mind like, is this person okay? Like what's going on? Are they like is the facade falling apart? So then like seeing fast forward to this video, I guess what I'm going the long way around this, but it's like fast forwarding to this morning and watching the video, I'm reminded of something else, another video from a speech from Jim Rohn that I watched a little bit about, and it kind of reminds me of this statement. It's like, you don't have to like it, but you do need to learn from it. And it's like, okay, I really have to practice that for myself when the emotions aren't high. Like if I see I'm in traffic going through Atlanta and everyone's doing everything else, I'm thinking, it's like, okay, what can I learn from this situation? It's like maybe get out of the fast lane. Like if everybody's trying to go fast and we're just not going, just detach for a minute and just take a breath
Let me give
and
you
just
another tool
stop.
for that
Yeah,
toolbox though, right? Like I always tease people, I can't make you Superman or Superwoman, right? But I can make you Batman because the only difference between you and I and Batman is that he's got this great box of tools and he knows how to use them. So for me, like being a good coach and a good mentor and a good counselor is filling everybody's toolbox and then teaching you how to use those tools well. Gonna make you all Batman. You know, I may not be Batman, but he and I have never been seen in the same room together, right? Isn't that how it goes? But here's one is that we are emotional beings and we feel emotions deeply and suddenly. They come from nowhere. We don't choose them, they choose us. And a lot of people will tell you that that's bad, right? We think of bad emotions and good emotions, right? So is being jealous and vengeful good or bad,
most of the time I'd say bad.
right?
I've been,
But
yeah,
but God is jealous and vengeful. He feels those
yeah.
things. He tells us so, right?
That's
And
something I've had to wrestle with, and I'm like, wait, I just don't understand it yet.
so here's a thought for you. I'm just going to plant some seeds. You have to see what you want to do with them. But what if emotions are neither good nor bad? They just are. There's feel good, right? It feels good to be happy, included, in love. And it feels bad to be jealous, angry, frustrated, vengeful, right? Those things feel bad, but they're just feel good and feel bad because God isn't capable of bad, but he can feel bad things. And what if they were there as indicators for us? So stay with this metaphor for a minute. You drive, right? You're just talking about being in the car, and on the dashboard of your car, it's got those little indicator lights. I think my boys have called them idiot lights. Hey, idiot, check your oil, right? So the oil light goes off on your car. Do you pull over to the side of the road and cry? I can't drive. My oil light is on. Oh, this is awful. No, right? We drive to a place where we get, to wherever we're going, we get on a flat piece of land and we reach in and we pull out the dipstick, the oil dipstick. And when we pull it out, it's super long. It goes all the way to the depths of our engine. Can you read it right away? And the answer is no, right? Because the oil's hot, it's been bouncing around, so it's going to be an inaccurate reading. And we take a cloth and we wipe it off. And then we put it all the way back down into the depths of the engine again. And we pull it out and we look at it. Now I can read it. And I've got three things can be read, right? It can say that I'm low, really low, and I'm going to be looking for a leak and I may need a professional to help me fix it and I need to put oil in. It could be just a little low and I could add a quart, and engines do that. We lose oil and it's not the end of the world and we keep going. And the other thing that'll happen is it'll say that it's fine. And I wipe it off and I put it back in and I pull it out and it's fine. And I don't know about you, but I have to do that 5 or 6 times because I'm like, but the
Right.
light said, right?
Yeah.
What does that tell you? It tells you that the indicator light is broken. It's indicating a problem when there isn't one. I believe that the emotions we feel are the indicator lights on the dashboard of our lives. So when I feel frustrated or angry or like, oh my gosh, I've got to get off the phone with mom, right? Or dad, or like, oh, Aunt Biddy is just driving me nuts. That's an indicator. And now I'm going to wipe off the emotion and I'm going to go to the depths of what's going on for me, right? Is there something wrong here? And so I look at the halts. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, tired, successful? Because those things make me vulnerable. We all know what it is to be hangry, right? So if we're hungry, we're angry, which is fear and frustration, always. We're lonely, we're tired, we've just been successful. We are more likely to have a big emotion to things that normally wouldn't bother us, right? So let's say you're really hungry and you say to yourself, you know what, Aunt Biddy, mom, whatever, I got to eat something. And then let's get back and finish this conversation. You go eat, you come back, they've come down, you've come down, you have the conversation. And it's like, wow, this is a good conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not that, right? I'm not lonely. I'm not hungry. I'm not overtired. And then I go, well, what else is happening? Well, you know what? I just had a fight with my boss. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. He wanted me to do something illegal. And now you're having, and I'm agitated when I came in. Okay. So this is about me. It's not about them. Or maybe I haven't had anything happen. I look back over my day, go, no, it's been great. And I think about what they're saying, and what they're saying has attacked what I feel like. For me, it's easy if somebody says something that makes me feel stupid, that triggers that little 9-year-old girl in me that I'm not smart enough. I'm not enough. And I'll have a big reaction. But it's not theirs, it's mine. I need to put a quart of oil in there and go, you know what? They're not that teacher. This isn't about my dyslexia. This is just, but let me figure out what this is really about. And so now I'm going to get curious. Like, I know, mom, you love me. And it's not like you to make comments that make me feel like I'm not enough. What's going on? And all of a sudden, you've changed the perspective that she has on it by saying, I don't see this as who you are. Like, I know this about you, so this doesn't make sense. Help me. And mom goes, of course I love you. I'm doing this because, and now you know the real reason,
Mm.
and you can deal with it. And checking our oil makes so much sense. And we don't do it. We believe our emotions are true and accurate, and we behave on them just like this. And they often blow things up because then they feel something and they react like as if it's absolute truth. And then that gives us a reaction. And all of a sudden we're up here having this big, when really and truly, and we it helps in every situation to check that. Why is that bothering me? If I'm in the road and people are cutting in and out and the traffic is bad, sometimes I realize that, I'm only upset because I've had a long, hard day. I need to put on some quiet music. I need to enjoy the fact that I've got a few minutes to myself. Other times it's like, you know what? I'm late. I need to get someplace. These people are stopping me. So I'm frustrated. And it's like,
Yeah.
so what will help me get to where I'm going? Nothing. I need to make a phone call. Hey, I'm not going to be there. I'm stuck in traffic. And then I'm going to enjoy where I'm at and
Yeah.
it be in that moment. But checking it makes all the difference in the world. And we don't stop to check ourselves.
Yeah. I like that with the checking it, just using your hands and counting those 5, looking at those 5 aspects and being like, "Am I one of these things?" And just the simplest thing, I always like that Snickers commercial where it's like, "Hey, you're not being yourself," like with the one with the Betty White, rest in
Yeah.
peace, and the different things like that. It's like, even now, even driving up yesterday, I think I recognized that in carrying like a little cooler. It's like it's good for keeping water in there, but keeping little snacks where it's like I can stop by a gas station, get a few things, and I'm not getting as much candy now. It's like maybe I'll get some like almonds or a bag of peanuts or like a little can or something like that, or an energy drink, mix it with the water or two, like do 2 waters, 1 energy drink, something with electrolytes, but just something there. And even to the other point, I don't think we touched on it too much, but like loneliness is something that's real. But like something that I found, and even in starting a podcast, was like I found that I enjoyed podcasts because it's like you're listening to someone. And if it's like someone having a dialogue with someone else, it's like you get to be a fly on the wall. and it's like, "Oh, hey," like, all of a sudden I've made friends, and, like, you're part of something, and even the other thing that I recognize is, like, I got frustrated listening to these guys banter. They do, like, journalism on mixed martial arts, and I was like, "Man, okay, I'm tired of this, like, why is their internet messing?" I'm like, "My internet messes up, like, I have issues with that." They're trying to connect it's like, I don't know how to do that, but they're trying to connect someone that's in California, someone that's in North Carolina, someone that's in Canada somewhere, someone that's, like, somewhere in between or on the other side of the globe. I'm like, "I don't know what it takes to do that," but I was like, "Maybe I don't wanna think too much right now." So I'm trying to just process all this information, and it's a news cycle week, and everybody's talking about the same thing. I'm like, "Oh, maybe I just need quiet." I know that I feel lonely, but, like, I don't have to be alone, so to speak. Like, I can be lonely, but that doesn't make me a loner. Like, it's not something like that emotion in the moment, like you said, that indicator, it's not something that's permanent because it's like
It's a
having
snapshot.
yeah, having had that tendency to be like, even as we talk, like disc or assessment, which is what a lot of coaches use, it's like it can quickly be misinterpreted as to like, "Hey, I've got this great tool. This is everything about you in your life." But it's like the way that someone taught it properly to me was like, "This isn't all you are and all that you've ever been. This is a snapshot of you in the moment that you took this assessment or went through these questions." And having taken it multiple times, sometimes I'm like, even if it's been like a year or 6 months has gone by, I'm like, maybe maybe I just don't need to take it again because I'm confusing myself as I'm reading through this, and it's like, I understand what was, I can refer back to the text, so to speak, but even in practicing, like, a bit of self-awareness or just being like, "Okay, let me check the indicator, like, what am I feeling? Like, why am I feeling that?" And writing it down or
Oh,
even
yes.
recording myself say it, it's like initially, I hesitated because I was like, "I don't want anybody to read this. I don't want anybody to get this file and listen to it, or I don't wanna listen back to it," because it's like, it makes me feel like, "Oh, I'm disgusting, or I'm this, or I'm that," but it's like, "No, no, no," like, the words and the thoughts that I have and the times that I have them, that's not me. Like,
It's a
that
bump.
yeah, it's just the moment, and it's okay to have moments and not let a moment become the whole day or a whole week, and it's like, I was thinking to myself, Thursday night was kind of rough getting in, but the whole time as I was going, I was like, "I'm really tired." Even before getting on the road, I'm like, "I'm really tired." But it's like, "Hey," we talked about the 2 triangles and kind of understanding, like, you can be in, like, a victim mindset or persecuted or, like, you feel like you need to be rescued or go rescue someone, but then if you flip it, you can see that, "Oh, okay, like, I know that although I'm here, I would like to create a new situation. I would like to not be depressed, so to speak. I'd like to feel better." And it's like, "Okay, I need to rest. I'm hangry, but I still got 6 hours of my workday to go. So how can I get there?" It's like, okay, like we said, baby steps. And like, I'll mess this a little bit, but I'd like you to kind of come back and clean it up a little bit. But like, something for me was like, okay, how do I get through today? And it was regularly or every 2 hours, I try to kind of check in with, some of my coworkers to be like, "Hey, this is what I'm working on. Is there anything that you need?" And asking that is kind of to give them an update, but to kind of bounce something off of someone, and as I'm speaking, it reminds me of like, "Oh, okay, like, there's something smaller that I should be doing that I can manage, that if I put my attention on that, I won't feel so drained looking at a Word document, trying to just break down my thoughts and make it to where it's like it's palpable to where someone can read it back and be like, "Okay, yeah, that's complete. You did this work. This is the results of the work." It's like, okay, I can't write a Word document right now, or I don't feel like writing a Word document right now, maybe I go outside for a walk, or maybe I go to the back and like just talk with someone, and just the act of walking there is something that not waste time, but it's like it helps the time kind of go by, but it gives me something else to do in the time that I feel stuck. So it's like I'm stuck, I get to move. And even in the time of you go ahead.
So I'm going to interrupt you because there's so much in what you're saying, and I'm going to recommend some books, right? So Dr. John Rady wrote a great book called Spark the New Exercise Revolution. And it talks about how 20 minutes of physical exercise where your heart's going hard and you're breathing heavy builds new brain cells, and that kind of exercise makes us smarter. It is better than any antidepressant, anti-anxiety, or what's the other one? Focus medication, and attention deficit stuff, bar none. The research is in. If you will do the exercise and you go over the top and do it, you will have lower depression, anxiety, and better focus. So, one of the things we know is like executives in big companies have treadmills in their offices and they go for walks. And, it's like when your brain isn't working, if you physically move, then our brains work better, because if you're sitting and you're not doing anything, you don't need your brain. We need our brain when we're moving and doing to keep us safe and keep us alive. So that's one of the reasons those things work. I think that one of the things that's going on in our world today on another level is that we are separated from the world because we listen in on conversations, all these great podcasts. And I'm with you. Marty Solomon and the Bema, I feel like he and Brent Billings are my friends. Like, I
Mhm.
can't wait to get with them. I listen to Brian Harden every day, read the Bible. And that's my community. We get around this global campfire and we read the word of God and we pray together, and it's wonderful. But there's still a loneliness.
Yeah,
And we forget to do this face to face.
yeah.
We forget that I can pick up the phone. And so I make it a habit that every single morning I'm grateful to somebody for something, and I drop an email, a text, or a note.
Mm.
Or I pick up the phone and I call and I go, hey, you know, I saw you at church the other day and you were paying some attention to some teenagers and there was mayhem going on around you. And I loved how you were staying focused.
Mm.
And to be seen and heard and appreciated builds up that person. And being the one who's giving that builds me up, and it
Yeah,
lifts some of that loneliness. Leaving a message on a phone, like, I'm not in the mood to talk to anybody, and I know so and so is not going to be available right now, but I
yeah,
leave that message that goes, hey, I was thinking about you. That leaves me with some connection. But making sure that I build into my day a few minutes with somebody every day.
yeah.
That's not a text. That's not a listening in on somebody else's conversation, but it's actual eye to eye, face to face. I see your body movements. I see how you're reacting to what I'm sharing and saying, and how you're reacting to what I'm sharing and saying.
Right.
That's connectedness.
Yeah.
And we all have different amounts that we need. And just because you are a quieter person, and I hate the word shy because it comes with all sorts of but you are a soft and gentle soul,
Mhm.
does not mean that you need less contact. It just
Right.
means that your contact doesn't have to be as boisterous and is so much motion.
Yeah.
You like this quiet, thoughtful, deep kind of conversation, where there's other people who are very boisterous and they're very outgoing and flamboyant, and they need that wild, fun kind of interaction. We need interaction.
Yeah.
And for some of people who are quieter, you, Justin, you can sit in a room with people and just watch them, and that's enough just to
Mhm.
be in their physical presence. And there's nothing wrong with that. But because of our technology, we don't have enough of that. And we as humans need to be together because, it's the lone animal in the wilderness that gets taken out.
Yeah.
And when we become the lone animal, this time it's not the lion and the tiger that are coming, the bear or the fox, whatever. It's Satan. It's
Mhm.
it's the thoughts in our heads,
Yeah.
which, again, you had said so much. we have those thoughts in our heads, that you go through the halts, and you can look that up online.
Mhm.
A halt is from AA,
Mm.
and then the S was actually added by a friend of mine, two ladies that have a program called Hope,
Mhm.
helping overcome painful experiences, a great um, weekend experience for dealing with forgiveness.
Mhm.
And I've been trained by them, so I use this and I love it.
Yeah.
But taking those things and then getting them out of your head, because remember when you were a kid and like you had a slumber party or you were in a strange house and you heard this noise on the window. It's like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, what's coming to get me? And
Yeah.
then you start thinking, well, maybe it's ninjas, maybe it's 100 ninjas, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And but you say something, Mom, Dad,
Yeah.
there's somebody trying to get in their house, and they come into the room and they hear the noise too, and they're a little taken
Yeah.
aback. They flip on the light and they go, oh, it's a bush.
Mm.
And you go, oh, now you're not afraid because you know what it is. When
Right.
we bring it into the light, it loses its power. So
Mm.
if I'm thinking in my head, my husband always wants me to feed him and he doesn't know where food comes from. And why do I have to make dinner? I've worked all day.
Yeah.
I'm in my head and it's getting bigger and I am pissed. And by the time he and I speak to each other, I'm a royal bitch.
Yeah.
But if I go, wait, whoa, I'm thinking this and I say it out loud, or I write it down, or I
Mhm.
call a girlfriend and I say, what? I'm thinking these thoughts. And she normalizes it for me. And she goes, oh, yeah, I think that sometimes about my husband, John, or, whatever.
Yeah.
It brings it down. And when I come home, but even to look at my husband, Richard, and go, you know what? I had a rough day. And you just said that. And you know what the bizarre thing is? All I can think of is, really? You don't know where food comes from? I have to do all of this. I'm so overwhelmed. And he's like, my God, that's not what I said. And I go, I know. It's what I was thinking. And we laugh. There's connection. And we go on with life. He goes, hey, well, how about if I order something, or let's go out for dinner, or you know what, we have leftovers. Let's just
Mhm.
do that. And he helps me.
Yeah.
But we keep it in here. And when we keep it in our heads and in
Yeah.
our hearts, it grows. And we have to bring it out into the light and make it smaller again, because we don't need monsters
Yeah.
in our heads. So
That's for sure.
I love that, writing it down, recording it, sharing it with somebody else, like just taking it out of our heads. If you sit and think about it in your own head
Mhm.
without writing it, saying it, sharing it, one of those things, it just grows and it
Yeah.
becomes a monster that will destroy you emotionally.
Yeah. And when you say it grows, it kinda makes me think it really festers, and it kinda has that, like, that just, ugh. It it's like a cloud that kind of follows you around, and it's like you can kind of see. And I remember, I think it might have been Justin that kind of it said something like, "Oh, your new nickname's gonna be Charlie Brown," and I hadn't seen a lot of it, but I was like, "No, that's the last thing I want to be compared to." Like, I know, but looking back, I can be like, "Wow, I was in a really rough place, or just in a dark place where I was like always judgmental, negative, but just trying to figure out like, okay, where am I going? Like, what am I attracting or what am I not attracting? And it's like, am I even attractive? Like, what does that actually mean? And just trying to get through the world where there's that irony where it's like we have all the things that are supposed to make us more connected, but depending on what you're seeing, you feel more disconnected because you're like, okay, where do I fit in all this? Like, where's my place in the world?
Absolutely. There's a really good, some good stuff online by Dr. Daniel Amen
Mm,
on ants,
mm,
and like the little ones that crawl on the ground.
yeah.
But ants stands for automatic negative thoughts.
Mm,
And we all have them, and they attract one another. So I love that and he's not the only one. There's lots of psychologists and psychiatrists that have used ants.
mm,
He just does a nice job making it real and easy to digest. But
gotcha.
think about it, if you go on a picnic and you
Mm,
put your food out on the table and an ant comes up, what do? Well, we flick it away or we smash it, depending on
mm,
what your thoughts are about animals, right? But we get rid of it. If we don't, and that ant gets a hold of a piece of food,
yeah.
a bad thought, and it goes back to the nest,
Mhm.
it leaves behind a chemical trail. And when it
Mhm.
gets to the nest, all the other ants are like, "Oh, where'd you get that piece of cake?" And they follow his chemical trail back. And so you have an infestation of ants and it ruins your picnic.
Right.
Same thing happens with our thoughts now. We know this in the human brain is when you have a negative thought, if you
Mhm.
don't squash it, you don't talk back to it, you don't correct it, you
Yeah.
don't fix it,
Right.
it leaves a chemical trail and we have 16 more negative thoughts that follow it.
Right.
So we have to learn to talk back to the ants in our head.
Right. Well, that's a good point because the thing that I've been trying to work on is that yes, on the one hand, I do want to speak to the ants in my head, but then in conversing with someone, when I hear someone converse in what I perceive to be a negative, it's like I kind of have to practice not cutting them off immediately because it's like whenever you talked about having the disability, my initial is like because I've been doing the work on in my head, I'm thinking, oh, there's a negative thought, I've got to stop that. But it's like, no, sometimes someone wants to express something. And to your point, it's like you expressed it in a way to where there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But it's like if you're around someone that's always expressing negative thought, negative thought, negative thought, negative thought, negative thought, and it's like, where like, okay, this like I feel like, okay, in those cases, it's like I do wanna stop those things and turn it into a positive, but sometimes I'm like and I don't know if it's like I've kinda questioned myself, I'm like, am I pushing what I want them to think, or am I trying to like preserve myself, so to speak? Because I'm like, okay, either if we've talked on 5 occasions and every time that we talk, you always talk in the same tone and at the same way, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, I might need to distance myself from you to preserve myself, so to speak, because it's like I can't give you something or I could, but, like, if I'm not trained to do that, to coach you out of that situation, I can't really help you because I don't wanna be in that situation, and it's like, there's no reason for me to jump in a hole with you, so to speak, if I don't know how to get out of
Absolutely.
the hole. But
I
it's like
think the
yeah,
yes and, right? And I love the yes and.
mm,
Yes, you do need to have some boundaries.
mhm, that
And
that
then
part.
what choices do you have to deal with it? And I love, wow, I got like 10 thoughts pop in my head. My brain kind of works like that. I like, oh, this and how, where do I want to take it? But the yes and is, and you told me that you'd read the book, the Boundaries book, right? And one of the things that they talk in there is the ouch. And so I had a friend who always negative. Like I would say, yeah, I think my house is one of the bigger ones in the neighborhood. Oh, my house is just as big, and it is nicer, and it's like, ouch, right? Or I
Yeah,
would hear her say something to somebody else that just kind of cut them off, or was, very sad, sad sack from Charlie Brown kind of thing, and I would just say, ouch, because it's painful to be around, and
mm,
I wait for them to invite me into it. I'm not there to fix them. I don't want to rescue you. I believe that every human being is capable of taking care of themselves. They just need information. And maybe the only information they need is, wow, that's negative. So I might say, ouch. And they go, what? Why do you keep saying ouch? And I go, it's just, it seems like you're real. It seems like, and I like those words
yeah,
because I don't know what they're really like inside their own heads. I can only say what I'm seeing on the outside. Seems like you're really negative. And when you talk like that, I feel so negative and drawn down, and it's hard. And then they go, oh, well, what was negative about what I said? Now I can have a conversation, and all I'm doing is educating, planting some seeds, and they get to make the decision. If that friend says, this is really helpful, thanks, then I'm going to hang out with them some more. If they're like, you're full of it, there's nothing wrong with me, what's wrong with you? Then I'm going to cut my losses and say, you know what? I wish you well, but I'm not going to put up with that. I don't need that in my life. It's the yes and.
Right.
Yes, that's not good. And what are my choices? There, but I might meet somebody like in the grocery store. I don't care, right? So the yes, that's
Yeah.
not helpful. And what do I want? I want to walk away. I want to just
Right.
cut my losses because I don't have a relationship here anyway.
Yeah. I I like that because it's kind of like it's a decision. Like a good friend of mine, Regina, would say, it's like whenever you decide something, it's like a cutting motion. No, wait, maybe I'm getting it missed. Like I think a decision is like an incision.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm getting it wrong.
Interesting. I'm
But
gonna have to think about that one.
it's like basically it's like when you're deciding to do something, you can cut like, okay, I want to do this or I want to do that. But like if you're trying to like you're playing tug of war with something and like you decide to go one way, you don't have to continue to pull back and forth in that motion, so to speak. You can say, okay, if I'm going this way, I cut that other option off. And I think kind of going back to the emotional thing and understanding where what I grew up with comes from or where certain like why I behave in certain ways. It's like, okay, like on the one hand, I do have that rescuing complex to be like, if somebody didn't have if somebody doesn't have what I have, like I feel that I was so fortunate, like coming to
Mhm.
America, a family of 5 at the time, where it's always like our big miracle story. My dad came here and I think um 92 to like 19 from 90 1992 to 1997 he was here in seminary school, and then we came in 97 December 11th. And it was like um we always talk about it, but sometimes I feel like with spirituality, there's always like a mysticism, so to speak. So maybe that's why I go towards engineering, where there's like a practicality, like, okay, like we study the laws of motion and things like that. And there's things in nature that you can't explain, but you feel good when you're able to build something or not explain something away, so to speak, but like you have something that you can work towards. Like
Yeah.
you have a goal that you're aiming at. And it's not just like, oh, I'm a sinner saved by grace. It's just like, oh, I'm so sinful. I'm just terrible. It's like it. I might be saying a lot of things, but it's just like there's certain things that empower you and other things that just kind of make you feel like, okay, well, that happened. What's next? And it's like, it's, what's the word? It's interesting, but like being able to speak with you and hear how there's that yes and there's what I'm observing to be true or to be real from my viewpoint, from my perspective, is happening, but or and I can do something about it. What I do about it, like that's up to me. I can act emotionally or um I can I can actually in checking the indicator, I can be like, oh, okay, like yes, my oil might be low, but I've got to go through the step of checking the dipstick, putting it when you say putting it back into the depths of it and actually getting that reading again. Like you got to wipe the dipstick clean. It's like, okay, like something is triggering me. Like, is this something from the past? Like, okay, I've been here before. Like,
Mhm.
what does it mean when I feel that? Okay. Maybe I don't know, but I noticed that I was able to recognize where I'm at right now. So, huh. Okay, maybe I go through the halt method and just be like, am I angry? Am I hungry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Like, did I just have like a big windfall? Like, oh, okay. I don't know what it is, but It'll
Don't
pass, I
forget to
guess.
ask what the other person's going through.
Right, right,
Are they hungry, angry, lonely, tired? Are they being triggered?
right.
Because,
It's not always about you.
yeah,
It's not always about me.
mm-mm, no. Sometimes I'll walk in and my family will say something. One of them will say something, and I'll stop. And I kind of real quickly, because I do this all the time, go through the halls on me. And I go, it's really funny. I'm having a real emotional response to what you just said. And I'm
Yeah,
laughing because I don't want it to be an attack. I want it to be a like, hey, can we look at this together? What's going on? And sometimes they'll go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in a bad place. Now we can have a good conversation.
yeah,
In the past, I would have, long time ago, I would have looked at them and go, I can't believe you're talking to me like that. This is inappropriate. That cuts communication.
yeah,
But just being honest, taking the thought, the feeling out of my head, putting it in front of me and sharing it
mm, yeah.
is respectful.
I like that.
I kind of want I want to be respected. So I want to share that same respect with everybody else.
Yeah. It might be a good place to end right there because otherwise I can take us down a long rabbit hole. But where can people get in touch with you or how can they learn more about what it is that you do?
So my company is Foundational Family, single one.com. You can go look around on the website. There's a really cool parenting quiz that's on that site. And even if you're not a parent, it is like how you mentor and coach, how you interact with people. So it could be really helpful. And that would be a fun thing to do. I've got some videos, and not a lot, but I'm working on getting some up on YouTube and those things. It's really easy to talk to me through my website. There's a place there. And you can either put in Nancy Grabe, GRABE.com or foundationalfamily.com and find me that way. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So I do speaking for civic groups, for churches and temples, and for businesses because what happens at home affects work, and what happens at work affects home work. And I will tell one more story if I can. When I was graduating from school with my master's in clinical social work, my dad, who was a PhD in chemistry and probably one of the brightest people I've ever known in my life, said to me, I'm glad, I'm proud of you for getting your degree. He goes, but I don't understand why such a bright girl's getting a therapy degree. This is such a waste. And I was devastated. And a couple of years later, he was working with a small company that was, or a large company that was family owned.
Mhm.
And they were driving him nuts. He was a consultant. So he calls me on the phone and he goes, you do this family therapy thing. He goes, I need help. This is craziness. And we talked for several hours. And when we were all done, he was like, wow, this has been so helpful. He goes, I'm really sorry I said to you what I did when you graduated because I totally understand what you do now, Nancy. You are a business coach for families. And I said, nope, Dad, you are a family therapist for businesses. And the reality is that whether it's business or it's family, it's about relationship. The businesses that take care of their employees and their customers and have relationship and value that. It doesn't mean that we let people walk all over us or we don't expect people to work, but we value the relationship and we mentor and build each other up, are the healthiest and make the most money. And so those are the places where I kind of interact with people, and I love doing speaking engagements, private schools and public schools and that kind of thing because I
Yeah,
want to teach, train, and encourage.
I
So that
like
was a
that.
long answer to your short question.
No, I like that. It gives people plenty of options. And if it's okay with you, of course, I'll link it in the notes and things like that and find a way to just keep it on the website.
I
It's
appreciate that. Thank you.
mytimepodcast.com. That way people can um, quickly just get to it because I guess the other thing I'm learning is that it's best to make things easy for people and kind of back to the why that we talked about having that singular target to just be like if you explain that clearly and concisely it makes people want to go and get what it is that they need because they know what they're getting and why they're getting it. But
Absolutely.
the last question I'll ask you kind of ties into the first question I asked you. Are you still who you said you were?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm more sure of who I am today than I ever have been. And I'm telling you, you know what? I'm 62 years old. I'm really proud of every year that I've done this. And every year, God has brought me closer to who He wants me to be and using those skills in the arena that He wants me to be doing it in. And I'm more
Mm,
comfortable with that than I've ever been. And it's really such a freeing thing because I don't care, and I want to be careful I don't say that. I want everybody to like me,
mm,
that I'm okay. If somebody doesn't like me, that's okay because I'm working on my why, and it may be that they are uncomfortable because they're not sure of who they are, or
mhm.
because my why doesn't fit with what they're doing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I really want good for them, and I want them to find the people that they need, but I
Mhm.
want everybody to always walk away from an interaction with me
Yeah.
feeling better than they did when they first encountered me.
Awesome. I like it. I definitely feel much better.
I'm
Thank
very encouraged. I love what you're doing, Asher. This is cool. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome.